Hey YouTube, it's Kel. I am back today and we're going to follow up with another video of the cognitive distortions. So this will be part 2 and we're going to do a few more and then I will do another video also on a few more later on. So but I wanted to follow up. So as you remember, again, if you have not seen my first video about ABCs, the activating event, the belief, and the emotional consequence of cognitive behavioral therapy, then go back and watch that. That was done a while ago. And then I just did a cognitive distortions video part 1 the other night. I think it was the night before last maybe. And but we're going to talk tonight. Okay, so just to give you a real quick background update, refresh your mind, is basically the ABCs of therapy is an activating event. So something happens to you in your external environment, then it gets filtered. This is what cognitive behavioral therapy believes. You have an activating event that happens, something happens in your external environment, and then it gets processed through your belief system. So we're talking milliseconds that this can happen, that you don't even know what your beliefs are, but basically just gets processed through your belief system, whatever that is. We'll talk about, if you go back to my very first video about this, you will see that you can either have rational beliefs that are logical and kind of not distorted, not blown out of proportion, or you can have what are called irrational beliefs. So things that you have accidentally made up in childhood, but then become like lenses that you start to view the world in. Okay, so part of all of our jobs, I think, is to constantly uncover what our irrational beliefs are and how they're affecting our emotions, right? So, okay, so that's the B part, is the belief. So filtering the activating event that happens through your beliefs. And then you go into the emotional consequence piece. So when you filter it through the belief system, you end up with a certain emotion. If you have rational beliefs, you're going to have a more healthy emotion that comes up, or emotional consequence. The C is the consequence. And so you're going to have a more healthy emotional consequence. The more your beliefs are rational, and the more irrational they are, the more kind of unhealthy and extreme your responses can be. Okay, so now I'm not talking about trauma, because trauma sometimes makes it that you have a what would to most people seem like an irrational belief. It could actually be rational because you went through something extreme. So that's a whole different subject. But so tonight we're going to be talking about part 2 of cognitive distortions, a few more cognitive distortions. And what cognitive distortions are is they are when you, in that belief process, the B step, you can basically, sorry, this is annoying the little crap out of me, but so you can basically get stuck with some rational speed bumps in your beliefs. So kind of like certain patterns that you might have, ways of thinking illogically or irrationally. Okay, so I think the one that we left off on before was a mental filter, but today we're going to start off by talking about what's called disqualifying the positive. So you will see this a lot basically when the definition I have here is discounting the good things that have happened to you or that you have done for some reason or another. So a lot of times a good example of people who might suffer from what's called disqualifying the positive are people who are maybe either perfectionists. So they will disqualify the positive by if their belief is kind of like, if I'm not perfect, then I'm a failure. So they'll focus on the failure part instead of focusing on the good that they have done or can do or have the ability to do, because they'll say that doesn't count because it's not perfect, or it didn't get me, to the 100% mark or whatever. So they disqualify the positive. So they're disqualifying everything good, and they're only looking at the bad. Another type of person who might do this is someone who is depressed. So, and again, this is not judging people. This is just helping them see that maybe when you're in a certain state of mind, you're more prone to some of these things than others. And it just helps you see how you might be seeing things a little irrationally, right? So depressed people might just think like, you know, bad things always happen. And then when you say, okay, but hey, but what about this? They'll say, well, that doesn't count, you know, or they'll be so hard on themselves. They won't be able to see the positive in themselves. Or like another example would be, like a depressed person saying basically like, there's never going to be any hope again. Okay. So it's kind of like, again, disqualifying the positive and them just kind of choosing to stay in a hopeless state. Now, I'm not, again, there's no judgment on that. Depressed people are usually depressed for a reason, but a lot of it can have to do with what you choose to focus on, what you choose to see, right? So, and I'm not blaming people because a lot of times it can be trauma too. So, you know, it's not as easy as just like, well, stay positive, you know what I mean? Like if people are traumatized, they don't want to hear just focus on the positive. Like that is, it's like they had real trauma happen to them and they have the right to feel that. Now, I'm not saying soak in it, like I'm not saying stay there forever, but people have the right to feel their feelings when it comes to trauma. So, okay. That is disqualifying the positive. And the next one we're going to talk about is called jumping to conclusions. So this again is at step B. Something happens in your external world, it's an activating event for you, and jumping to conclusions is like if someone gives you 2 and then you see another 2, you assume that there's 4. Okay? So you're basically, you see certain things and then you jump. The irrational step there is, it's one thing to observe and acknowledge the information you've been given, right? But jumping to conclusions is saying, I know what happens with this, and you jump to that next step of it being like the illogical part of not being like you don't have all the information yet. You can't tell. Because let's be honest, 2 plus 2 does not always equal 4 if, say, then someone comes along and adds another 2, right? So, like, again, you might think, oh, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but it's like, well, is 2 plus 2 the end of the equation? Or is someone going to come along and add 2? Or is someone going to come along and add 5 and then take 2 away? You don't know, you know? So jumping to conclusions is saying, okay, I see 2, that means there's 4. Well, it's like, no, not necessarily. What it means is you see 2 and you see 2. And like, I understand it can be very tempting to jump to conclusions, but the more rational you think is like, you just might not know if you're at the end of the equation or waiting for more information. So that is jumping to conclusions. That's another cognitive distortion. And the last one we're going to talk about today is called magnification, which is also called catastrophizing. I'm sure you may have possibly heard about that. And minimization. So they're kind of at extreme irrational thought cognitive distortions. But a good example, I was sitting here racking my brain thinking like, what's a good example of this? And a very good example to me is when a person is experiencing physical health symptoms, okay? So you might see this cognitive distortion if someone magnifies the symptom without having evidence that it is like something serious, or they might do minimization of it and say, oh, it's nothing, you know? So without the truth is, you just know there's a symptom, right? You don't know what it means until you go to a doctor, get it checked out, find out what the facts are, find out how serious it is. But people in that B step will jump to like, uh-oh, it's this symptom. And trust me, I've been bad at this myself. I'll Google something and be like, oh, I will usually say, I hope it's not that, or you know what I mean? Something like that. But still, it's taking it a step further than just, I have this symptom and the doctor, like, the doctor and I will find out what's bad about it or what's going on or whatever. That's the rational step. When you think, oh, okay, I'm just going to use an example. This means nothing to me, but like, let's just say, oh, I have this mole on my arm or something. And then all of a sudden that's made me change shape, let's say. And you just all of a sudden are like, oh my God, it's skin cancer and blah, 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 you know? And I have had clients who have kind of done that in their mind. They'll spiral a little bit on that. Or I'll have clients that, you know, they might have something serious like a mole that has radically changed, and they'll be like, it's nothing, I'm not going to go to the doctor to see it, or like see what it is. So, and a lot, you know, so that is a very good example, I feel like, of magnification of what your reality is, and the belief, like you're going to either take it to the nth degree, or you take it to like the 0 degree and make it mean nothing. So the rational thing there, right, would be to just observe what is, you know what I mean? So like, and then you go find out more information about it that's based on evidence and facts, instead of jumping to, again, it's kind of jumping to a conclusion, magnification and minimization, but they're kind of different things also. So because yeah, you might not be at the conclusion, you might just kind of like blow something out of proportion. So okay, so that's 3 more for tonight, and I just wanted to like pop on and pass along the knowledge that I have seen throughout the years. And again, what I just said, just the last few minutes of cognitive distortions, is going to make a lot more sense when you think about them at the B belief step, and then you go back and maybe watch the video that I did on the ABCs, because together those videos will make a lot of sense. If you just see this on its own, you can kind of still get it, but it really is meant to teach everyone how to think better, healthier, and kind of find out if you have any, what irrational beliefs we all have going on, and try to correct them, because you can correct them, you know. I talked the other night about always or never. So like, if you hear yourself saying always or never, you can, it's kind of like a good check for you to be able to recognize in yourself, oh wait, I'm probably being like, there's probably some cognitive distortion there. So you can work with a therapist also if you notice yourself doing any of these cognitive distortions consistently. And you can maybe get to the root of why you have the cognitive distortions. That's obviously not something I can necessarily help everybody with over video, but I wanted to just, like, a lot of these videos are just psychoeducational things I've learned over the last 20 plus years of doing therapy and social and being in social work field. You do see some of these things come up. So I will come back and I will do a part 3, and I will do a part 3 with a few more cognitive distortions, and then I think that should probably complete this little series that we're doing. So I hope that this helped you in some way, shape, or form, or that you that we all think more rationally and have more healthy emotions as a result. And I will see you next time.